And we're back. We're joined on the phone today by actor Andre Gower. You might remember him from his role as Sean Crenshaw in the film Monster Squad. But today we're talking about his new film, Baby Frankenstein. Hey Andre, how you doing today?
Good, good. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, can you tell the listeners a bit first about your new film, Baby Frankenstein? And what are the listeners in for?
Well, I've been loving the attention this little movie's been getting because I have a kind of unique relationship with it in that two of my good friends were actually in Northeast Pennsylvania and met the filmmaker, and they started talking about this project that he wanted to do, and they were like, "Well, hey, we're production people. Let's get this thing going." And a few weeks later, they ended up calling me and asked if I'd be interested in wanting to, come and jump on this, kind of fun little neighborhood adventure story. And, I was making sure that it would work for the film and work for my friends and help everybody out. And so I flew to Northeast Pennsylvania and showed up and realized I was on this set that they were cobbling together an awesome kind of experiment of how to get something done. And they shot this thing in like 7 days and had multiple cameras running, and we just kind of jumped in and got it done. And kudos for the rest of the cast who had so much more to do than I did, and definitely the crew that was kind of sequestered by themselves on location, and and the filmmaker John and my production friends TJ and Denise for really kind of really putting a lot of hours and a lot of days into, a 7-day shoot for a feature-length film, which is almost unheard of. And, you just never know what can come out of an experiment like that. And I think people are responding to, a fun story that they connect with about kids in the neighborhood, finding something that no one knows what it is and going on an adventure. And it becomes sort of this kind of, campy neighborhood romp that definitely has some heart, and the genuineness of everybody that's involved in it, mostly people being local and regional actors, and the crew that came in to kind of, put all these long hours in. You got to give it credit for everybody that had to involve with the production on something like this with a super limited budget and very limited time. Everybody should kind of just celebrate that it's getting a release, one, in general, and two, that people are responding to it, in a positive manner, because it came out, as a very heartfelt, kind of interesting neighborhood, fun kids adventure story. And, of course, it takes place on Halloween, so why not? It's everybody's favorite day. And, I just kind of look back and, I'm glad that I, had a couple days of involvement on this. And I hope my, participation, helped with the success of either getting it done or getting released, or I hope it adds to the finished product as, at least a little bit, because they should celebrate what they accomplished.
Awesome, yeah. It's kind of, sort of like a movie you would see back when I was growing up in the 80s. It's kind of like a, as you mentioned, adventure, kind of like a E.T., but with Frankenstein in it. I love that kind of stuff.
That's right. It kind of crosses over a little bit. Definitely has that 80s, kids in the neighborhood vibe, has definitely some E.T. vibe. And, the other thing it kind of crosses over into something that I like, and I wish we actually saw more of it, but, maybe there's more stories to tell here. But, with the character that I play being the heir apparent to this kind of big tech company from the 40s and 50s that invented this, automaton, which, is basic. We don't really know what this character is. That's what's interesting about this movie is we immediately meet this character that, one, we've never seen before, and it's not the result of, like, a mad scientist cobbling together abnormal brains and body parts, but we don't really know what it is. And we just end up going on this adventure with it. And, so that crosses over into that, kind of that mid-century sci-fi feel to me. And that's what really kind of hit with me about really what this is, going back to the origin story of, the baby Frankenstein, which is what they call it. But, he ends up having a name, so you got to watch till the end of the movie to find out what his actual name is. And that's a nice little, kind of payoff there. But like you said, it brings in some, some feel and some nostalgia and even some old sci-fi, kind of elements in there, which I think people enjoy watching, especially during this current time we're going through. It's a nice escape. It's a nice, tight, quick, short movie, which is always the right answer. And, people are getting a kick out of it. So that's all you can really hope for. And, to me, getting a movie made and finished in post and being able to go to some film festivals is always an accomplishment. But to actually finish it, get some interest in it, and actually have a release where the rest of the world can get a chance to see it, not every filmmaker, not every production crew gets to be a part of something like that. So what I like about it is it's not only a great story about the kids in the neighborhood, but it's a filmmaking story about how a group of people in a small town in Northeast Pennsylvania can actually come together and create an opportunity and actually shoot a movie in their hometown. And that's what I like, because hopefully not only viewers will enjoy the movie itself and the story, but the story behind the movie, which means that it's an inspiration to other filmmakers that can actually get something made that they may thought of they never had the access or the ability or the acumen to actually, to accomplish. But what you need to do is you need to get, the right, handful of people together, get the support, do the legwork, get some equipment, some gear, and some people to know how to use it, and go make your movie.
Excellent. Yeah, and again, it's available now on DVD and all the streaming platforms, and it picked up a lot of awards, from the film festivals in the last couple of years. So it's great that it all came together like this.
It really does. And like I said, that's sort of really the testament to two things in filmmaking. And you just never know what an audience is going to relate to. I think a lot of times if you put hard work into and a lot of hours, hopefully people will respond to that. And, it's kudos to everybody that was involved in this movie, including, my two friends, TJ and Denise, who really, wore about 11 different hats making the production of this thing happen, because that's where the meat meets the metal there. And, the filmmaker for, having a vision and putting it together and getting a group of brothers together that will, put some money in behind, albeit a little bit of money, but then they put some work and some effort and some enthusiasm behind it. And then the world gets to enjoy, the outcome of that. So I think that's what everybody should also look at celebrating when they're watching the fun little story.
Definitely. And Andre, I got to ask, I know you started out acting pretty young. I wanted to ask you about your memories of working on the A-Team. That was one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, it's, the A-Team is always one that people pull out when they're looking at the resume list, just because, it was such an iconic show. And, my kind of work history with, a lot, I did a ton of television, and I did a lot of actual series that only went one season instead of doing one season that went for 5 seasons. I went, one show that only lasted one season 5 or 6 different times. But I was also fortunate enough to do a ton of guest spots on awesome shows, and A-Team happened to be one of them. And it's one of the favorite things a lot of my lifelong and close friends love that, that I got to do. And, I don't take it for granted. I love this because I loved the show myself as a kid, and then I got to be on it. And it was even cooler because we got to go up in the mountains and we got to play a family of lumberjacks that, the A-Team has to come and help. And I'm pretty sure I've kind of gripped onto this claim to fame for many, many years that I am probably the only person in the world that has ever chopped down a tree with Mr. T. So I think that still holds. I think that record holds, but, if someone's out there that can fact check me and prove me wrong, I will accept it. But, that was certainly a fun show because it was a great, TV show to watch, but then also to be on that set with all those, great guys and, to be a part of the family that they helped save and defeat the bad guys. What's better than that with 80s TV?
Definitely. And of course, I got to ask you about Monster Squad. That's one of the big ones, speaking of the 80s. Did you think you'd be talking about this film all these years later at the time when you were on set?
Certainly not at the time. You never know, what's going to happen when you're on the set. What you actually hope is the movie comes out and a success and you get to do more movies and more TV. Of course, everybody knows, or some people actually don't know, that Monster Squad came out and was actually a box office failure. It totally bombed the summer of '87 when it came out, and it just disappeared. Yet there was a growing legion of fans and kids at the time that either saw it at the theater and it connected with them, and then they rented it at the video store or they saw it on HBO, and then they passed it around to their friends. And that connection that Monster Squad fans ended up having with that movie is something that impacted them for the rest of their lives, which is what kept the movie alive for 19 and a half years until we had this kind of get-together cast reunion screening at the original Alamo Drafthouse in Austin, Texas in 2006, which was really the lighting of the fuse that became this ongoing, just kind of Roman candle of resurgence for Monster Squad and everything that is attached to it. And the fans just came out of the woodwork. Then that launched, convention appearances and screenings and travel for us all over the place. And it created the, fan fervor and demand is the first time I know of that created, especially back then, a major studio to actually produce and release a DVD, which was a double-disc 20th anniversary special edition thing, and it, sold like gangbusters, and then was out of print again. And, and then a Blu-ray came out, and another Blu-ray came out, and then it's been on every major streaming service and back on basic cable and PVOD and SVOD again. And so this resurgence that we thought would, almost die out after a year or two, not only didn't die out, we were totally wrong, it's only gotten bigger and stronger and making an even bigger impact with these fans because they've passed it on to their own kids and their younger, siblings and their younger nieces and nephews, and they're showing it to their friends now, and it's starting this whole other, kind of generation of fans. And it was that sort of dynamic that, to answer your question, did we think we'd be talking about it 30 years later? Absolutely not. But the fact that the fans are the ones that connected and were impacted by it so deeply that they're the ones that kept it alive, and it's those personal stories that I kept hearing over a number of years that was really the motivation and the, thought spark and inspiration for making a documentary about that fandom and that connection that these fans had with this movie that bombed in 1987. That they wouldn't let it die. And not only did they not let it die, but they've made it grow and grow and grow over the last 30 years. And that's an incredible story. So that's what we were trying to cover with the documentary Wolfman Got Nards.
Yeah, I know for me and, a lot of kids my age, that was really the first time you were able to see all the Universal monsters together in one film. I mean, obviously the days of Abbott and Costello were long gone by that point.
Well, you just touched on, two main things of why Monster Squad exists as a story in the mind of Fred Decker, who, grew up as, a kid watching a ton of television and watching famous old black and white studio movies like Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And because of those kind of campy Universal movies, and including the original Universal Monster, cinematic endeavors, an idea pops into a college kid named Fred Decker in 1985 or 1986, and he has the thought of what would it look like if the Little Rascals fought the famous Universal monsters. And he and Shane Black, who was a college buddy, got together and they wrote that script and they made the movie. And that's what you have. And it's because of that connection with the old, kind of Hollywood cinema and those old monster movies, coupled with the innocence and the kind of adventure spirit of a group of kids that we hadn't seen before, but we've seen it a ton since, right? And it definitely became something that not only inspired fans, but it inspired other creators and other writers and other screenplay, authors and other film directors and producers, and that's why you see a lot of stuff that's very similar. And I think it was a very unique concept at the time that no one had seen. And they put it together. They made a giant, big-budget studio movie with a bunch of creature effects and a marketing campaign and a timing of when it came out, tanked the movie in 1987. But we are now here today to, be able to celebrate the resurgence of it and tell that special dynamic story. And, it's very unique. I don't know of many other titles that have the same kind of dynamic wrapped around it that Monster Squad does.
Yeah, it's definitely, I still see young kids, wearing the Wolfman Got Nard shirts, and, so it's definitely still here. And you did a lot of stuff, as you mentioned, a lot of TV and a lot of this and that, but I know you took a break from acting for quite a while, but you've been back for a while here, making a lot of movies the last few years. What is it, I guess, that brought you back? Was it just time for your break to be over, or?
Yeah, you're never really out of it when you're in it. It's just the current daily, being active in it, quote unquote. I was living in, not anywhere near, LA or New York, and I was kind of separated from the industry for a long time. My first break started, I went to college. I wanted to take that time in my life and experience other things. I got the opportunity to, I played basketball at two different colleges in North Carolina, so that was something that was very, unique and special at the time. That it was a concerted effort to focus on that. And then, you learn different things, and I worked at, a handful of newspapers, and I have a mass comm journalism degree, so I was, writing a bunch of stuff for years. And then you sort of tiptoe back into it and step back out, and I was in a completely different world and a completely different industry for about 10 years, and there was a TV show project that kind of sparked an interest in me, and I made the decision to kind of change and pack up and move back to LA, because that creative kind of kid in me, and that motivation to create and develop and try to get things made started flowing again. And it was a totally different, because you're a different time in your life. And I moved back to LA and worked on these projects. And that original project that I moved back for, I was successful with, getting it worked on and pitched and interest in it. But then that ended up not happening, which happens all the time in this industry. And so that's still out there, but it's on the back burner because all these other things came up in the interim. And I got a chance to be in front of the camera, some things. I created a couple of shows, and, including a documentary and some other film projects that I was working behind the camera on. And, and then going around and servicing all of this, pop culture and horror genre fandom, and going to screenings and conventions and film festivals all over the country and all over the world is, it's fascinating, and it fills your time, and it's just something very unique and fun to do. So I've enjoyed being back in the industry for the last 6 or 7 years, and dealing with the Monster Squad kind of resurgence since 2006, 2007 has been not only a catalyst for a lot of that, but just something that's a value add to your adult years, that you get to relive something and see the impact that it's had on so many people. And then to create a film project, which is what you want to do, about that dynamic with the documentary, a lot of cool things have been going on the last couple of years. So I certainly dig it, and I appreciate, all the support that everybody's been giving out there.
Excellent. Well, again, Baby Frankenstein is available now. What else is coming up for you, Andre? Is there something else we should be looking out for?
We've got this weird kind of pandemic kind of shutdown with stuff, including production, but creativity and development is still flowing. There's a couple projects I am working on with one of my partners, Henry McComas, that actually I made the documentary with, along with my studio, Pilgrim Media Group. We've got a feature project we're working on. It's hush. I can't talk about it right now, but hopefully soon we can announce. And then, speaking of the documentary, Wolfman's Got Nards, we're actually getting ready to finalize a distribution deal and a release date for that. So if everybody just follows me on my socials, or the documentary itself, which is at the Squad Doc, you can get the updates there. But definitely stay in touch. Hit me up. Ask me questions on posts, and I'll try to get to the answers. But there'll be some awesome announcements coming in the next few weeks for all the fans out there. And yeah, please go support local and small budget filmmaking, because that's where all the good stuff is. And if you got some time and a few dollars to rent or download Baby Frankenstein, go to your TVOD service and enjoy a good little neighborhood romp that I was fortunate enough to be asked to have a small part in, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Awesome, man. I'm definitely digging Baby Frankenstein, and it's been great speaking with you today, Andre. Thank you so much for your time.
Hey, man, thanks a lot. Hit me up anytime.
And again, that was Andre Gower, Sean Crenshaw from Monster Squad, but his new film, Baby Frankenstein, is available now on DVD and all the streaming platforms.